All right, earlier today, President Biden kicked off a two-day virtual summit for democracy that the U.S. State Department says will focus on challenges and opportunities facing democracy. Here's what President Biden said earlier this morning.
We stand at an inflection point in our history, in my view. The choices we make, in my view, in this moment, are going to fundamentally determine the direction our world is going to take in the coming decades.
Now, he went on to talk about how he is reviving democracy in America by passing bills spending trillions of dollars. Is that the key to reviving democracy? Joining me now is Dr. Dave Brat, Dean at Liberty University School of Business and a former member of Congress from Virginia. Dave, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
So is democracy about trillion-dollar spending bills?
No, I mean, I think the average American, if you just reflect simply for a minute, you'll see that the increase in tensions we've had in civil society and getting along have increased right in line with the increase in the size of the federal government. So I think it's just the opposite. We used to have a vibrant democracy. Originally, the intent was to have most of the government done at the state level. And even state policy was last resort if your locality or your local community or your church couldn't handle the work that needed to be done. And so we're in uncharted land. Of course, this is just a narrative created, right? The real issue with democracy lies at home. The current administration's Department of Justice has labeled in writing parents as domestic terrorists. These are law-abiding American citizens. Two women have had their homes broken down with a giant police presence. One woman is a gold star mother, lost her son at war, and they went into his personal effects. This is all documented in the news. So this is just a bunch of narrative talking points to cover the atrocities that are taking place under our democratic government here at home. It's shocking.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I want to get into what the core of democracy or self-government is. But I just one observation I had when I read this and read the president's speech. I didn't listen to it. I read it. Is that I juxtapose this to the Trump administration that did a ministerial to advance religious freedom. They were focused on human rights. They were focused on religious freedom as the core of freedom, and from that springs prosperity and stability. It's interesting that what the ground that this administration wants to chart is kind of this nebulous democracy, and it's just a jumble of things. But let's talk about the rule of law, because the president actually in here talks about the rule of law. He said we have to stand for justice in the rule of law, for free speech, for free assembly, for free press, freedom of religion, and all the inherent human rights of every individual. This is a guy that just trampled upon the Constitution, mandating vaccines. And as you pointed out, his Department of Justice clamping down on moms and dads speaking out against the indoctrination in school. I think we have an issue of the rule of law in this country.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it is a bit of an irony, but it's a true one, that freedom, your freedom and your human rights require law, right? And so you scratch your head on that for a minute, but if you don't have the rule of law, you do not have human rights. And so that is the crux of things. And of course, the rule of law comes out of the Judeo-Christian tradition, our founding, all the universities. I just read a great book by Barton again, all the universities at the founding, about 244 out of 266 had presidents that were pastors, presidents of the universities, right? And the governance of our nation was very similar. It was all founded by godly men who had faith as their core, biblical faith as their core. And so, now the giant increase in its crime wave across the United States. We all saw the riots across the country. Not a word said or covered on the mainstream media. So I think we do need to get back to that reporting and make sure that is covered, because it is just crucial. You're seeing changes in the elections across Virginia. You're seeing huge changes in the electoral vote for Hispanics now favoring the Republican side. And these opinions are mine, right? These are all my own personal opinions. I'm not speaking for any institution.
Well, I want your opinions.
Yeah,
that's why I got you.
And these are just factual matters
well,
that I'm laying out too.
You talk about crime. This out today. With less than a month still left in the calendar year, this is from the AP, at least 12 U.S. cities have broken their annual homicide records in 2021, and there's still 3 weeks to go in the year. And you look at what's happening in California, where you have these smash and grab robberies that are taking place. It's lawlessness, and it's being modeled at the highest levels of our government.
Yeah, well, back to the U.S. citizens labeled as domestic terrorists, and the terrorists are not labeled as terrorists, right? So the religions that sponsor terror are not labeled state sponsors of terror, but U.S. citizens are. So, I mean, that's all you need to say, right? That's all you should have to say. But it is increasingly a spiritual war out there, which, of course, relies on a narrative war. And on the conservative side, on the Christian side, we have a severe deficit of newsmakers. You're one of the great exceptions that just stick out like a sore thumb trying to say the truth in this upside-down world right now. But everyone out there needs to play their part in their churches, with their kids' education, making sure they're not indoctrinated. The rule of law is just central. And it, of course, precedes, right, Magna Carta at 1215, and then our founders, James Madison, all these folks, preceded Adam Smith and the free market system. And that delivered the wealth. You also need the rule of law to secure private property, which, of course, made us the richest country in the world. And now you're seeing problems with the economy that the market's going to crack up this year with certainty, probably lose 30 or 40% again.
Well, that's what I want to go here for just a moment. As dean of the School of Business, I mean, you've got a great handle on a number of topics, but economics kind of in your wheelhouse. How can we have? And this is kind of a rhetorical question, because we've seen over the last 2 decades what happens on Wall Street when it's unbridled by morality. But can we have a prosperous economy without the rule of law?
No, you can't. And, unelected bureaucrats, you always hear that phrase. But one of the biggest unelected bureaucrats is called the Federal Reserve System. And they have created, $7 trillion in funny money on their balance sheet. Right? You can go look that up. I'm not making that up. And so, it looks like our economy, we have people can't find workers to hire right now. So it looks like it's kind of good, but it's all on a sugar high. And so, again, we've lost track of what it means to have a true democratic republic. Where your electors have to vote on these things out in public, that no one votes on what the Fed is doing. They're out, and they've become very political over the years. You can just watch their cycle.
Right.
And then the debt ceiling just went up by $2.5 trillion again, most likely.
Right. Yeah, tonight.
And that's going to be devastating for the economy. That's more sugar high. And so, the real economy is hiding beneath this giant layer of stimulus. Once that goes bye-bye, and it will, right? You can't sustain this rate of growth of debt. We'll be at $45 trillion in debt by the end of this 10-year cycle, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So, our economy's fake right now. Everybody knows it. Wall Street knows it. Every analyst says it. You can go Google, just go out to Yahoo News. Everybody ought to investigate that, right? Go out to Yahoo News or any financial channel, and you'll see we're in a huge bubble right now. And now they're calling it, in 08, 09, it was bad enough we had a huge real estate bubble. Now it's called the everything bubble, because that much money has gone into all asset classes, right? Every single equity is propped up by this amount of money that's artificial. And so it's all going to come tumbling down. And so everyone needs to get a little defensive right now with your investments.
Yes, and get out of debt. Be wise with what you commit yourselves to.
Right.
Dave Brat, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us. And if I don't talk to you before, have a very Merry Christmas.
You bet. God bless everyone out there. Merry Christmas.